give it another minute and we'll get this started. All right. Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Matt Girgenti with Project Leadership Associates. I'm the Director of Microsoft Delivery Services. And for the next 45 minutes or so, my plan is to go over Microsoft's Office 365 E5 suite, which is their newest offering as of January of this year, and kind of focus on what's new in it. I'll have actually we'll go ahead and pull this up. There's the first slide is kind of what's in E1 and E3, which I'm hoping a lot of you are already familiar with. And I'll run through real quick what's available in the E5 suite. And then we'll cover some of the pros and cons of each one, some of the deployment options. We're going to leave hopefully about 15 minutes or so toward the end for some questions and answers, and hopefully we'll be able to show you some of this as well. So within the E5 suite that was released January of this year, Microsoft offered a whole new stack inside the productivity suite. The big one everyone is talking about, of course, is Cloud PBX, or Skype for Business in the cloud, and that's huge. And I think that is actually overshadowed some of the other very important components within E5, specifically around the meeting broadcast, which we're seeing being used at quite a few organizations that have shareholders, is a great example. It's the ability to do a webinar or a broadcast to up to 10,000 users, and it's very much designed to be almost a TV presentation style, or a studio presentation style. Multiple sources of data, microphones, cameras, computers, all presented out through a webinar style. We'll go into that in a minute. Some of the other components that are within E5 are the analytics for e-discovery, and we'll cover that a little bit and what it does. There's a lot within the security components, and that's everything from personal productivity, being able to see what you're spending your time doing, what you're accessing, as well as safe attachments within email and safe links within email. There is some deployment now within org analytics, which is sort of like the personal, being able to see how you're tracking your time, your meetings, that kind of thing. And then, of course, the two big components are Skype PBX and the dial-in conferencing. They broke it out into 3 columns, and some of the slides you'll see here today are from Microsoft specific, and some are ones that we as PLA have put together. The whole idea of around E5 is to be able to take all your productivity and your workforce into the next level, where E3 covered your day-to-day business, your day-to-day work with email and Yammer and OneDrive and SharePoint. E5 adds that missing component of communications with the Skype client, but it also adds the entire capability to see what your time is spent on, how to optimize your time. We'll talk about some of the things within the PBX and what it does and doesn't do. But a lot of people don't realize you also get Power BI Pro with the E5 license. And one of the big ones that Microsoft's talking about, and we're very happy to see, is Customer Lockbox. We'll cover that here in a minute as well. So here's the big one, the Skype meeting broadcast, PSTN conferencing, and Cloud PBX, PSTN Calling. At the high level, Like I already mentioned, the Skype meeting does up to 10,000 users. It's one-way audio, essentially. The end users do have the ability to chat back with you or ask questions, but it really is designed as a presentation instead of an interactive meeting. Some of the key features of it are the ability to join from any browser or from a Skype for Business client or Leap 2013 client. So it's using tools that most people already have, typically browsers and mobile devices, can see the entire meeting, and the experience is the same across all devices. PSTN conferencing, we use this all day, every day, and it is a go-to meeting type conferencing. There's a lot of alternate solutions out there. The Skype for Business PSTN conferencing is the only one I'm aware of that truly integrates 100% seamlessly with Outlook and Office and Skype for Business. The others all have plugins and tools that, while they work and they get the desired effect done, it's another product, it's another offering. With the PSTN conferencing built into Skype, I literally create a new meeting, click the Skype meeting button, and it pre-populates the meeting invite with all the dial-in information, multiple countries. That feature is used across most corporations all the time, but it has not been available in Skype for Business Online natively. You had to use a third party. Well, now it's native and now it's included. The usage of the minutes at the moment, there's no charge for it. It's part of the package. They have kind of made indications that they will look for abuse on it. So if people are out there holding, 8-hour conferences all day, every day using this tool, they may send you an email and ask you to revisit that approach. But for right now, the dial-in conferencing component, the voice component of it, is built into the package. Cloud PBX is a very good offering for those who have used Skype for Business or those who have used Link 2013. The integrated voice capability, the options to be able to put calls on hold and to transfer, to do three-way calling, things like that, all from the same tools you already use. So I can go from an email, I can start an instant message. From an instant message, I can turn that into a voice call. From a voice call, I can make it a conference call. Conference call can be recorded and or become a video call. All of that is a natural progression using the built-in tools that are right there within your normal Office and Skype installations. That's now available in the cloud using Office 365. Previously, especially if you had the E4 licenses, you could use Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, but to deploy Skype, you had to do it on-prem. Well, Microsoft has now filled that gap and allowed for the Skype for Business, the entire service offering, to be available within the cloud. They broke out PSTN Calling, and there's a lot of confusion around this in the market at the moment. But the reason they broke the PSTN Calling out, that is the actual dial tone assigned to your account. So if I'm in Office 365 and I have an account in Girgenti at projectleadership.net, and I have a Skype for Business Online account, I can be enabled for Cloud PBX. I can do person-to-person calling and on hold and transfer those features. To be able to dial out from a landline or a PSTN, or to be able to receive calls on a specific DID, you have to have a PSTN calling plan associated, or, and this is why it's separated out, the other alternative is to use your existing service, whether you've got an on-prem PBX or if you have a SIP provider, you have a phone system on-prem you want to keep, or we've got some clients that I've worked with recently got really incredible deals on PRIs. So they've got multiple PRIs coming into their headquarters, and they don't want to lose those PRIs because the price they got is incredible, and they're on a very long contract. So Microsoft gave the ability to keep that, but have all of the server components for Skype to be hosted within the cloud. So that was the overview of within the Skype components. We've covered some of this. You'll see me flip through the slides. I'm not a fan of sitting here and reading slides to you. So Skype for Skype meeting broadcast, like I said, we've pretty much covered. The important one on here is the deploy on-prem or in hybrid. So if you have users that are on-prem with Link 2013, or specifically they've got to be on Skype for Business at that point, and cloud, you can deploy it in either one. This is also what's not on this particular slide, is this is available in all of the E suites. E1, E3, and E5 all include this now. You do not need E5 to get this. Whatever current Office 365 plan you're on for the Enterprise Suite, this is included. And there we go. So the dial-in conferencing we've talked about, it's very similar to the meeting invite you got for this meeting, where it has a link where you can join through a web. You can also dial in by phone. One of the really nice features that Microsoft included in the first release is the call me option. So you can have the ability for the conference to call out to you, whether it's to another phone, whether it's to another attendee. If in the event that you're not in a position, you can call into the conference. You're in another country or whatever the case may be. The system can actually dial you. That is a feature we did not expect in the first release, and we were very happy to see that come out. So here's the PSTN offering that I was mentioning, and it is only available in the US currently. It is being expanded very rapidly. I believe there are, I forget the exact update, 16 or 17 countries that are pretty much on board now with getting DIDs and phone numbers. It is moving very rapidly, so for that we'll have to constantly check the Microsoft site to see what's available within your country if you're outside the US. From an IT perspective, from the server team, having everything under one license, everything under one component, one support contract, to be able to see all my DIDs for all of my users across the organization, US-based or global. It makes IT support substantially easier because it's much more streamlined. From the business end, the end users, and I use mine all the time, where I have the Skype client loaded on my mobile phone, so I can make calls to and from customers or to other people within my company, and it's all using Skype, so it's not actually using my phone. My cell number isn't necessarily broadcast. But within there, I have, from a governance and retention policy, my conversation history is saved. Calls can be recorded, conference calls at least can be recorded if necessary. I can do video. But again, it's the same experience whether I'm using my mobile phone, whether I'm using my desktop, or if I'm on my laptop. I can move between them. The ability to, let's see, these slides real quick. And there we go. So again, to be able to have a central service to be able to manage all of your phone services. The one thing that Microsoft is doing that some of the other cloud providers are not is that hybrid environment. Some users can be homed on-prem, some can be in Office 365, combinations back and forth. And that comes into play, as a quick example, we're doing a rollout here shortly with a company that's in the insurance industry. They've got a corporate office. They've got large SIP trunks already coming in. Those users are all going to stay on the Skype for Business on-prem solution. They've had it in place for a while now. It's tried and true. They've got a call center. So all of that's going to stay on-prem. But they're appraisers that are outside of the office. They're actually global, so they could be anywhere in the world. Those individuals are going to go to Skype for Business Online, and they're going to use the PSTN calling that Microsoft offers, so they have a DID. The on-prem users can transfer to the cloud, and cloud can transfer back. From a customer perspective, they have a single DID to call, and they can reach that agent anywhere in the world. From the IT department, they no longer have to worry about their agents having to VPN back into the central office. Some countries don't allow the VPN. Some countries that allow it, the performance is degraded quite a bit. So by using the Skype PBX, the appraisers that are in the field simply have to get to the internet. And then Microsoft handles the connectivity between the end user and Office 365 data centers. They handle the phone calls and the quality of service. It's all in the cloud, but the end users are able to interact with their on-prem employees and counterparts seamlessly. They don't know that they're cloud-based. And another slide. And there's the Microsoft slide I knew was coming. But this is stuff we've already discussed. It's the manageability and interaction from an end user perspective to use one set of tools that they're familiar with, tools that they use all day, every day. It makes their experience much better. It makes onboarding much quicker, and it makes support much smoother because it's a finite set of tools. But Microsoft gives you the flexibility of the deployment. And, of course, the anywhere access is what we were talking about with that insurance company. Be able to get to it from anywhere at any time, whether you're on your mobile device, whether you're on a laptop. You can almost even use in a kiosk style, be able to log in through the web portal, be able to do instant messaging and some conference features. So from the deployment, Skype for Business on-prem is still supported, still recommended, and there are some cases where it is still required. The online component, and everyone's asked, so I'll go ahead and put it out there now, at the moment does not have the ability to do a call attendant or response groups. So the ability to have a main office number and have the either Skype for Business workflows and response groups or Exchange Auto Attendant. On-prem, those are the two services you can use that will pick up that call and offer a voice greeting and press 1 for sales, press 2 for support, that kind of functionality, and then have it transfer based on the end user interaction. So that IVR capability is not currently available with Skype for Business Cloud PBX online. It is on the roadmap. It is coming soon. Initially, it was 2017. That's been bumped up to 2016. We're hoping to see it sooner rather than later. However, in the meantime, what you can do is utilize, you have two components. You can use a Skype for Business server on-prem. The calls terminate on-prem. It goes through the IVR, and then they route to either another on-prem user or into a Office 365 user if that user is in the cloud. You can also use your on-prem PBX if you have an Avaya system on-prem or a Cisco system on-prem, and let's say you're in a 2 or 3 year contract, or you just recently upgraded to the latest Cisco call manager. You really don't want to walk away from that. You can still utilize that and then create a SIP connection to Office 365 and put some or all of your users' endpoints and phones in Office 365 and use your call manager as the front end for it. So just like you can do a hybrid with your Skype server on-prem, you can do the same thing with other PBXs as well. One thing Microsoft, and it's not on this slide, I don't believe I have a slide on it, currently in preview is a product called the Hybrid Connector. And what it does is it's a prepackaged set of virtual machines that Microsoft has available. You download them. I believe there's 2 of them. There's an XML file you configure, and then you run a setup file against that configuration, and it will build a miniature Skype for Business presence in your environment to create the front end that talks to Office 365. So it's a pre-packaged, pre-built, pre-configured. You just put in some of your company-specific items. So you don't have to roll out an entire Skype for Server deployment on-prem if you want to keep your PRIs and SIP trunks and call attendance and those features. If you want to keep those on-prem, you can do this, use this hybrid connector. It does require directory synchronization. specifically the latest AD Connect. It does require that to be in place and functional, and you have to run through some of the setup configuration for shared namespace on the SIP provider. Very well documented process, very straightforward process, but it allows you to keep your on-prem SIP trunks and PRIs and call attendant, all that functionality is on-prem, and then gets routed up to Office 365. And I'm going to skip this, is what we just talked about. Here's a better graphic on it, but the reason I left this in, or the reason I wanted to stop on this one, is because of the express route. So when you have your on-prem components, and now you're sending the voice call up to a user that's in Office 365, the way you achieve QoS, quality of service, is through an express route. And an express route is basically an MPLS connection from your on-prem network into Office 365. Express routes can go into Office 365 and or Azure. So if you've got a bunch of on-prem servers and you want to use Azure Backup or Azure Site Recovery, and you want to use Azure as your secondary data center, an express route makes sense. Express routes can come in multiple sizes, 50 meg, 100 meg, 200 meg. I think there's a 500, a 1 gig, and it actually goes up to 10 gig. A 10 gig connection from your data center into Office 365 is huge. And I personally only know one Fortune 100 company using that size at the moment. But you can get them as low as 50 meg. The typicals are around 200 meg. There's a handful of providers, and anyone who's interested in an express route information, feel free to let us know after the webinar, and I can get you some information on it. But there's there's only a handful of providers right now from a telco perspective offering express routes. Equinix, Level 3, Verizon, I believe AT&T, and I think there's one other as well. There's more coming on, but essentially you contract with them to provide an MPLS connection into Office 365. What that does is it gives you an SLA on the connection, gives you guaranteed bandwidth, it gives you quality of service, and it no longer routes your traffic over the internet. And that's important not just from a security perspective, but from a guarantee perspective. If you're in your office and you're connecting to Exchange Online on Monday, you may have 10 or 15 hops to be able to get to your data set, your Office 365 data center. On Tuesday, it may be 20 hops or 25 hops. The internet routes traffic dynamically, and your experience is not guaranteed to be the same day to day. When you're talking about dial tone and voice calls, the express route becomes a critical component if you're going to tie in with your on-prem PBX. There are some companies that are doing some custom offerings at the moment to be able to do SIP trunks from their data center directly into Office 365. So basically these other companies are providing a front end that connects to Office 365, so you don't have to have anything on-prem, but you still get all the call attendant functionality. And the way some of that works is if you've got the Cloud PBX functionality, if you're using the PSTN Calling service, like the adjusters from that insurance company I mentioned, they'll have the PSTN Calling service. Their phone calls go in and out directly across the PSTN or public network. They don't touch the on-prem at all. Your on-prem users can go through your current telco, or if necessary, if inbound calls come through your current telco, they would route up to the cloud users if needed. So from the Cloud PBX component, at the moment, it's very DID, or direct inward dial, very DID driven, meaning every user gets a number. You can call that number and it will ring them on Skype wherever they're logged in or everywhere they're logged in. I have a tendency to be logged in multiple places and they'll all ring at once. I can accept that call, I can transfer that call to another employee, I can put it on hold, I can take that call and upgrade it to a conference with the click of a button. I can even turn it into a video call if the other end is video enabled. That functionality is there and it works very, very well. I don't think the first slide showed, but when you add the PSTN calling component, you actually choose a domestic plan or an international plan. The domestic plan is $12 per user. The international is $24 per user per month, and that gives you the unlimited calling in and out. For companies, 20 to 30 seats, 40 seats, those make sense. When you get into, say, 100 seats or bigger, we'll take a 500-seat company as an example. The $12 per month per user for that doesn't necessarily make sense when you typically have 20 to 30% usage concurrently. So out of 100 users, you typically won't see more than 20 to 30 on a call at the same time. With the PSTN Calling, $12 per user per month, you're paying that cost all day, every day, whether they're on the phone or not. There will be a break point, and every company is a little bit different, where it's better to use a SIP trunk, where you're paying for a certain number of channels or trunks or concurrent calls, and have that front end into Skype for Business online. And Microsoft was very good about making sure that that capability is there. You have those options, and you can tie in with your existing PBXs if necessary, so you don't have to throw that away. But for mobility workers, putting them in the cloud is a great solution. I'm a big fan of doing it, mainly because it reduces the requirement on the IT team's infrastructure and support. For the end users, they get a consistent service, and they get to use tools they use all day, every day that they're familiar with. You don't have to go back and forth between Office and a Cisco Jabber client. You use Skype for Business, you're in an instant message, upgrade it to a phone call, make it a conference, record it, share a document, all of that natively from one application. So the personal insights, this is something Microsoft is using internally, and I've actually been playing around with this for a few months now, and it's very interesting to see. They've taken Delve Analytics and expanded it. So Delve is Microsoft's, it uses machine learning on the back end to analyze your workflow, documents that are made available to you. It can make suggestions if I'm working on a E5 team, or let's say we're working on a marketing team around E5. Delve is constantly looking for similar documents and will present them to me, or people that are doing the same tasks as me. If there's multiple people accessing the same document, Microsoft can detect that and say, Matt, maybe you need to have a meeting with John because you're working on the same files or the same topics. It helps us be a little more efficient. The Power BI component, Power BI is extremely useful, and from an executive standpoint or from a presentation standpoint, it is a fantastic tool. Power BI can take from multiple sources, whether it's SQL, Excel files that you pre-populate, external databases, Oracle, and it pulls all that data in and presents it on a single dashboard. And you can access them from almost anywhere. I can take a Power BI report and send it to someone. When they open it, it refreshes the data automatically. It can pull data from internet sources. So it can look at Twitter to see how your company is trending. It can read you can overlay weather inside of it. In Houston, there's a food chain store that is overlaying current weather and predicted weather to adjust the air conditionings within their restaurants. And just automatically adjusting the air conditioning within their restaurants a couple of degrees on a once or twice a day is saving them a substantial amount of money to the tune of almost 7 digits a year, just by analyzing all this data and presenting it in a panel. You can take that data and do other things with it. You can make it interactive. Power BI is now a user where Power BI previously was managed by like a SharePoint team or a Power BI team and then presented to end users. Power BI Pro, which is included now in E5, or is released with E5, is my Power BI. It's my Power BI, the ability to go build my own documents, my own panels, my own reports, and evaluate the data that I think is necessary, and I can then send that out to others. I don't have to rely on a team now to be able to do that. It's cloud-based. It can works directly with the Office suite, so you can package these up. You can email these. You can take these down into Excel. You can turn these into pivot tables. The data being accessed is substantial. Pulling in from the Microsoft cloud, non-Microsoft cloud, on-premise data. To be able to pull data from in one panel and out of Oracle, SAP, SQL Server, overlay that with your Salesforce information, and then look and see what, and then you add in some of the external services like Twitter and Facebook, and be able to get a complete picture of what's going on within your organization. Marketing teams love this, and executives love this. It really is what they need to be able to make their strategic decisions. With machine learning on the back end, statistical analysis, you can tell it what's my productivity going to look like, or what's my expected growth going to look like in 6 months or in 13 months. You can pick these and scroll them out and do predictive analysis. And again, single pane of glass. You can leave this up and it can be monitored in real time, or it can be packaged and sent on a regular basis. You can drill down into all of them, and you can overlay some of the SharePoint, the KPIs can be overlaid inside here as well. So if you're watching daily production, there's a manufacturing company in Houston using this, and they're watching daily production. If they're falling short, they don't want to know at the end of the day that they fell short. They want to know in the middle of the day that they're falling behind, and they can make adjustments real time to avoid the problem by the end of the day. Accessible, again, all of Microsoft's, not all, I should say, most Microsoft information or their products now are going to be pushed across iOS, Android, Surface, laptops, desktops. This common platform, common delivery is a ongoing theme you'll see. Just get these going here. So Dell Org Analytics, and I think I may be able to show you one here in a minute, is basically again, machine learning on the back end. Tells me how long I'm spending in meetings, what's my average number of emails, average response time to emails. It can get deep into, we were using this or looking at this at a test organization for a pilot, and realized that their average email chains, they would hit reply in excess of 20 times on a particular email thread. So it went back and forth between multiple people at least 20 times. No one realizes it because it's a little bit here and a little bit there. With the Org Analytics, we were able to identify that and say maybe earlier on we should have attached an agenda or just made it a meeting. We're all tired of meetings, but if a 30-minute meeting can avoid 20 back and forth emails and we get on the same page within a few minutes, it's much more productive. Being able to show how many meetings you're in, and Microsoft with the machine learning can tell whether you're in a meeting by yourself, meaning that's productivity time. I do it on my calendar all the time. If I've got particular things I need to accomplish or tasks, I block time out on my calendar. Microsoft sees that I don't have anyone else invited, so they know that's productivity time. If I invite somebody else, it's generally seen as a meeting, or, I'm sorry, if there's one other person, it's productivity. If there's multiple people, 10, 15 people on there, it's seen as a meeting, which is considered non-productive. It's necessary, but it's usually non-productive. You're not actually producing something at the end of that meeting. So Org Analytics is, again, harnessing machine learning on the back end to give you insight into what your day looks like. A lot of us know what our days are like. There's also times where we feel like we're buried in meetings or we weren't very productive. This helps us kind of refocus on the actual data, not just what we feel. It can also be used to justify making changes in your environment. It may be additional staff. It may be changing how we do things. Instead of relying on email, let's do a 30-minute Skype meeting. This is available within E5. It does take some time to build up, so if you go look at on day one, not a lot of information's there. A week later, there's more. The longer you use it or the longer it's in place, the smarter it gets. These are probably, two of these are probably my favorite components of E5. Advanced Threat Protection, Customer Lockbox, and then the Analytics for eDiscovery, the Quivio. That's a more specialized product. So starting at the top, the Advanced Threat Protection. What makes this so powerful, and I've got a couple slides on it. I can probably demo it if I run through these pretty quick. It's real-time protection. The ability to check an attachment or a link at the time I click it. So if I have a link in my email and I get it on Monday and it points to Bing, which is safe. Well, on Tuesday, if it points to a site that no longer ingests Bing, now it's ingesting malware. If that link is no longer safe, but it's already in my mailbox. It's already passed our filtering. This allows at time of click protection. And with antivirus, it's the same thing. Opening up a document or an attachment with an email, it actually gets executed in Microsoft's sandbox real time before it's released to you. Customer Lockbox is all around data security, your data security. Microsoft made an effort several years back to make sure, as an example, I used to be able to call, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that, I used to be able to call support with a particular problem. They would access my tenant, walk me through either the resolution or tell me what's misconfigured or identify things that are set correctly but not working right. They had access to be able to see that. Microsoft changed that a couple of years back, and rightfully so. And part of this was part of ISO 27018, which is something I mention on every call. Please look up ISO 27018. It is the ISO standard around cloud services with who owns your data and who can access it. Microsoft is the only provider currently that is ISO 27018 compliant. The other cloud providers have chosen not to do that, and that's a very big tell right there. So Customer Lockbox says not only can we not access your data, in the event you ask us to, or you put in a support ticket that requires us to look at your data, we will put in a request internally at support. Support validates it internally across basically there's a workflow that says multiple people have to approve it that says, yes, this tech needs access. The administrator of the tenant gets an email asking to approve that request. You go in and you can approve it and for how long. And it tracks in the site how many, basically you have an ongoing history of who accessed what, how long were they in there, and what did they need to do. If you do not approve the request within 12 hours, it automatically goes to a deny. So Microsoft has taken the stance that nobody gets access unless you specifically approve it. I'm going to come back to the analytics because, like I said, that's a very specific one. Online protection, I'd actually rather show you this. So I'm going to skip through here. Customer Lockbox is available currently. It was actually released a little bit early, which was great, but it is currently available. You do have to go into your tenant and enable it. So inside your tenant on the admin side, under Services, Customer Lockbox, you have to enable it. And this is kind of the process that we talked about. And the customer has to approve it. So this is kind of talking about the Equivio analytics, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. This is more around legal departments and legal firms doing e-discovery. There's several. There's a Fortune 100 company here in Houston that I've done some work with directly around this. Their legal team spends an incredible amount of time when a request comes in to find all documents about a particular topic or about a particular person. They spend a substantial amount of time trying to gather all that data. What Equivio Analytics does is it removes near duplicates. So you, instead of coming back and having to scan through 20,000 documents, it may remove duplicates and get that number down to, say, 8,000 documents. One of the other things it does is it creates themes. A lot of times documents are created and you'll have document and subdocument, or you'll have 10 documents about a particular presentation, as an example. It creates themes and groups those. It allows you to see the group itself without having to read each and every single document. So you know, if I'm looking for this orange group on the upper left, I look for it by theme, tell it that's what I need. Any documents it finds that are tagged to that theme or it believes is part of that theme, it will return to you. Okay? Email threads is a big one. It tries to pull what I would call the latest or most recent email that has all of the thread. Instead of pulling back on that company that had 20 replies across 10 employees, there's a lot of email back and forth. Well, you only really need the final one that has the complete thread, and it will pull that back without having to read all of it. Predictive coding isn't something that is used a lot, but it is around the idea of saying, I need all the documents about a particular topic, and Microsoft it walks you through a series of questions that says, review these 5 documents. Do they apply, do they not apply? You basically rate them 1 through 5. Microsoft takes those answers and it'll keep asking you questions and suggesting documents until it believes it has a very finite picture of what you're looking for. And then it'll come back and say, we believe if you stop now, we can retrieve 16,000 documents. That represents 85% of what you're looking for. You can choose to go do the full search and pull everything back, but then you have to scan through it. Or you can pull back that subset, accepting that 85% is good enough for this particular request. Every document that comes back, every search you do equates to time, which equates to money. Some of these document searches and deliveries are actually billed to individuals or to clients. So that's what Equivio does. It really focuses around streamlining that search process to get a snapshot, not absolutely everything you need, but a snapshot. And then from there you can choose to dig deeper into it if you need to, or sometimes legally you have to. Let's see, there was a question that came in. I was going to check this real quick, and then I'm going to show you some of the new panels. So the question was around E4 versus E5. E4 is going away. As of today, I don't believe you can actually purchase E4. It's already off of the new sales page. You can continue to use E4 though. There's going to be a very strong push over the next couple months to get you to move to E5. And from a pricing perspective, they're making it very palatable. But you continue to use E4. It will go away. The thing is, when you go to E5, you get all the other features. It's not, so let me back that up. With E3, you got your productivity. E4 gave you your Skype or Link enterprise voice licenses. You still had to deploy on-prem, but it gave you the license. E5, you continue to get that license, plus you get all the other features we talked about with advanced threat protection, customer lockbox, that kind of thing. Let me do this and pull this over. I hope you can see this. Resolution is always questionable on some of these presentations. This is what's called, basically I spun up what's called a CIE, or Customer Immersion Experience. It's basically a tenant Microsoft creates for us with a bunch of users and data that we can use for demos and testing. But it has all the features of E5 with the exception of dial tone. That has not been added. But what I did is sent a document from another user, and let me see. That's going to play nice. This did not allow me to download it. It's on another screen. I apologize, you couldn't see, but basically it pops up saying that there's a bad executable in here. When I sent this last night, it passed through the system fine. Today, because that executable has a time bomb in it, it was not allowed to open. A better example is the real-time protection. So this link I sent yesterday as well, and this was fine. If I click it now, that figures. It's not going to work. I apologize. It's a demo. This should have, do I have a screenshot of it? I don't. And it's because this is a, well, let's go look actually. When this was set up, it does take a little bit of time for the advanced threat protection items to take place. By the way, while I'm in here, service settings and customer lockbox. This is where you go to turn that on. And any requests that come in from Microsoft to access your data are shown here and also in the message center. And okay. So I set these up late last night, and they may not have propagated through before I sent the attachments. Anyone who wants to see this, feel free to let me know, and I can either send you a video on it or we can demo this one-on-one if necessary. But basically, you just create a policy on what actions to take for safe attachments. This one in particular, I believe, is limited to internal. But you can tell it to replace it, block it. And let me show you some of the other choices here. So we can basically turn safe attachments off, monitor it and alert someone, block it, or replace the attachment with basically a message that says this was blocked. You can also redirect them to a particular user. So a lot of times we'll redirect this to a holding account where we can review them. And typical Microsoft Exchange rules on who this applies to. I can do it only if it's internal, if it's external, particular groups. I can add exceptions, very much like a normal mail rule. But I did want to show, let me see if I can get this to come up. Hopefully you can see this. This is the some of the analytics. This is Delve showing me documents I think are useful to me. It went out and is suggesting that I need to look at these. And here's some of the analytics I talked about. It can show me that I'm in, 16 hours of meetings, 9.6 hours in my email. Focus hours is where, kind of remember I talked about you set up a meeting, or I'm sorry, you set up an event on your calendar. And for me, at the end of every day, I'll do a client review, and I go through current projects, scopes that are necessary, that kind of thing. I don't take other calls or other meetings during that time. It is very focused. It's productivity. This will recognize that. And again, as you use this, as this is enabled, the data grows, the intelligence of this gets better. You can also edit the goals, and it could tell you how you're doing from a goal perspective. Also tells me key people that I talked to this week, how often did I interact with my manager, people that I have not talked to as much, and then of course, decrease or increase throughout the week. This really gets powerful the more and more it gets used, and more it gets used across your organization. You can dig down into a lot of these. These are the top recurring meetings. So you can see, yes, this is taking a substantial amount of my time, and I'm not even in half of these, or I'm doing other things during that time. So you can create some exceptions around how this reports. All of these that you're looking at are, and again, this is just more detail on the ones that were above. After hours is a big one, especially for a consulting firm or an implementation firm. A lot of our team spends out time after hours, but it's good to know how much you're really working outside of what used to be called normal working hours, right? They're no longer the case. Go over here. This doesn't seem like it's active. It's not. So that's the analytics. And this user did not. I was hoping this was the user I used to send that attachment. Let's see if that works. Because I sent it to the admin user, the admin's also getting the redirect, which is why I think the demo didn't work a minute ago. But again, anyone who wants to see this, initially the attachment itself is safe, and then within 24 hours it becomes unsafe, and this will catch it. So those are the components of E5. I know we ran through them very quickly, and I want to kind of open, we've got a few minutes left. I want to make sure we open up and allow time for a Q&A. There was only one question in the chat window specific to E4 and E5. Is there an express route play required? And I apologize, I wasn't watching the question window, so I don't know when that was asked. Express route is absolutely recommended for Skype for Business Cloud PBX. My personal breakpoints are around 20 to 30 users on-prem. Anything more than that, I would really consider using an express route. If you're going to have the on-prem PBX or SIP component. Even for 100% cloud-based, if you've got 30 or more users in an office, all on the phone at the same time, a express route will keep those phone calls, the quality of that VoIP call, it'll keep it at it's a much better quality, essentially. So I would definitely consider an express route. The only other alternative at the moment is to use one of the third-party providers where they are already sitting in an Office 365 data center or Azure data center, and they're a SIP provider, so they're essentially getting you on net without having to do the express route. But again, your end users, 30 or 40 of them, all connecting into Office 365 from their Skype client, if they're all on a phone call, or more importantly, if two users in the office are calling each other, that's a point-to-point call. So that's user A to user B, and it's not leaving the office. When they add a third person, Skype automatically makes that a conference, and all three connections go back to the Skype server. So at that point, you now have three users on a SIP call, and that traffic's all going directly in and out of that server. You think about that and you add a fourth or a fifth person to that conference. Now you've got that bandwidth for a single call times 5, all going to Office 365. Scenarios like that are where ExpressRoute really makes sense. Microsoft has an SLA to the ExpressRoute for an uptime and for latency. It's not guaranteed at this point what the latency will be, but we're seeing latencies under 10 milliseconds to Office 365 on ExpressRoutes. Whereas getting there before the ExpressRoute, those average latency times were over 100 milliseconds. Most Office 365 connections I see between 50 to 80, 80 to 100, but it's not uncommon to see things over 100 milliseconds. Put an ExpressRoute in place, 10 millisecond or less, is fantastic. And you control the bandwidth. So you can control whether you need 50 meg, 100 meg, or 200 meg. You can route Azure traffic through the internet and Skype for Business traffic through the ExpressRoute. So depending on, there's 2 types of connections on an ExpressRoute, depending on which one you go with. Essentially, it's a layer 2 connection versus a layer 3 connection. That determines how you can handle your routing. Not all providers offer both types. So if you're interested in an ExpressRoute, please shoot me an email and I can get some information back to you on the different types, what the deployment looks like, some of the costs are involved. Cost is a moving target. The Microsoft access cost for an ExpressRoute is set, and you can see it on the Azure pricing site. What is not set is your provider. So if you hire level 3 to provide the connection or the connectivity between your on-prem and Office 365, their charge will vary based on where you are, whether you're on their network or on a partner network. There are some people who are just on the wrong side of the road, and there's no good connection there. So it's expensive to get that connection or that fiber run. Every situation is a little bit different. And I will put my email, actually, I think I have it on the first slide. And I believe this deck is available for download. But my email is right there, Girgenti@projectleadership.net. You can also do placorp.com, I believe, maybe a little easier. Feel free to reach out to me, any other questions you may have. I know we're just about wrapped up. Were there any other questions? I don't see any in the window. Okay. I hope this was beneficial. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes in case there are any other questions. The deck is available for download. My email is there. I know we covered an awful lot. Each one of these topics can pretty much be a webinar in and of itself, and that's probably what we'll be doing very shortly, of breaking these down into individual components, showing how they're used, showing where they're beneficial, where the ROI is. On the Skype side, we can go into some of the deployment options and what's involved, some of the pros and cons, what's worked and what hasn't worked. We're happy to dive deep into any one of those. The focus of this was really the overview on what's in E5. And I hope that was beneficial. And feel free to reach out to me if there's anything else I can do or any questions that you may have afterward. And have a great afternoon.